Good evening, everyone. My name is Elizabeth, the Education Coordinator for Marlene's Market and Deli. Tonight's special guest that we have with us, which is Dr. Elizabeth Beatt, naturopathic doctor at Federal Way Naturopathy, and is speaking on a wonderful topic tonight on boundaries and also just overall wellness. Thank you so much, Dr. Beatt, for being here.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me.
So we are going to get started here. I'm going to put this on slideshow. Oh. To do it. Okay. Right. Let's try this again. Just wants to do it that way for some reason. Okay. I'm going to go back here. Sorry, folks, technical difficulties. It is not wanting to do that. Let's see. There we go.
Finally. I also was having technical difficulties. So like I said, Elizabeth's going to be sharing her screen and I'll prompt her for the next slide. And again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. I will keep an eye on the participants in the waiting room and let people in as necessary. But thank you for that introduction, Elizabeth. I am Elizabeth Beatt, a naturopathic doctor licensed in Washington State and practicing at Federal Way Naturopathy. And Elizabeth and I have coordinated this talk, got it set up a couple months ago, and she said that the theme for January is resolutions. You know, people tend to make those in the new year, as well as self-empowerment. And I was thinking about what I might want to talk about and decided to just sort of explore the idea of personal boundaries and what that looks like, what that means, as well as herbal allies that can help with self-empowerment. So I'm going to continue admitting people, but we can move on. The next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so sometimes it might sound vague when we talk about boundaries, but let's consider when our boundaries are weak, we may, one, take on other people's emotions, attitudes, or even physical symptoms. So that can be easily thought about if you're with a friend who's really upset about something and you can get really upset about it too. And that is healthy, that's normal to empathize, but then you walk away. The rest of the day, you're kind of in a funky mood. You can carry other people's fear, grief, or anxiety. You can allow someone else's opinions to influence the relationships in your life. And this is often accompanied by a sense of loyalty. So, for example, oftentimes this happens in families. You know, you have two siblings and one of the siblings isn't talking to the other sibling and they turn to you to be on their team and ask that you maybe not talk to them also. And out of a sense of loyalty you might agree to that. You know, that's just one example. There's a lot of other examples, but that can be a sign that you maybe have weaker personal boundaries. And then another one is you feel invaded by and are helpless to other people's beliefs. And all of these things kind of go in like kind of connect with each other. But these are just some examples of, again, when your personal boundaries are down or when they're weak, these can be tendencies that we have. And oftentimes it doesn't make us feel good. So we'll go to the next slide. Like I said earlier, we are creatures of connection. So our nervous system is actually wired to pick up on the emotional state of those around us. And that is actually a powerful survival skill. However, many of us do not learn how to separate our energy and emotions from those of other people. So we often don't even know how to recognize what is ours and what is not ours. So what is our anger versus is our siblings' anger, or what is our anxiety versus what is the anxiety of the world or the times. And when our boundaries are weak, we can lose some of our personal power and begin to feel excessively tired, anxious, depressed, irritable, brain foggy, or just not like myself, which is something that I hear often. And when I hear, those types of things, there are obviously a lot of root causes, but I definitely am thinking about people's boundaries. And the way that I want to tie this into this idea of self-empowerment is just this, again, this statement here is that when we do have weak boundaries, we can kind of lose some of our power and lose some of our identity and our will, our own emotions, that kind of gets lost in another person's. And a way to regain our power, for example, or to sort of promote that self-empowerment that we're talking about, is to either, I'm going to introduce tonight a meditation. We can turn to herbs. We can do a lot of different things. Next slide, please. So again, there are many ways to cultivate awareness about the state of your own boundaries, to develop your intuition about what is yours and what is not, and to heal and empower ourselves through working with boundaries. But tonight I will offer you a bubble meditation, and I like to use it to ground people, to set your boundary or your bubble, and to cultivate a safe space that is yours, so we can explore what it feels like to be in control of your space and to set a boundary. And we set this boundary by first connecting with the earth and the sky, and that is where I'm going to start with you all tonight. So this is a meditation that I learned from one of my mentors, Susan Poland, who I list at the end of the slide. I have a whole list of my teachers, mentors, resources, etc., that have impacted my understanding of this concept and what I've chosen to incorporate into my talk tonight. Susan Poland practices out of Edmonds, Washington, and her practice is called True Radiance Healing Arts. She is a healing facilitator, which has a broad definition, and she's been incredibly important to my own learning as well as my own personal healing. So I just needed to shout her out and give her credit where credit is very much due. So let's move into the meditation. If you are all ready for that, let's just go back. We'll just stay on that slide. Yeah, great. Okay, so I will be also closing my eyes and just walking you through this. But first of all, I just invite you all to get comfortable in the seat that you're currently in. Feel your bottom against the surface below you. And just take a couple of slow breaths. Just a couple of slow breaths. And then we'll begin. And I invite you now to imagine a red ring low in your abdomen, encircling your abdomen almost like a hula hoop. And emerging from the center of this red ring is a golden grounding cord, almost coming straight from the center of your spine, dangling below you from the center of this ring. And you'll notice that this golden grounding cord has a branch that goes to your right hip and to your left hip. And just hold this image real quick. I need to step away for one moment. Hey, babe. Apologies. My husband has a louder voice than he realizes. And I don't know if you could all hear him, but I could. So we'll just come back to that red ring around our abdomen, that golden grounding cord coming out from the center of the ring. And again, noticing the branches to the right hip and to the left hip. And there's also a cord that goes straight down into the center. And now we'll bring our awareness to the golden grounding cords heading towards your hip. And as we breathe, we're going to imagine them growing down into our legs, into our hips. And they grow through the top of our thighs, and they grow to our knees, and they drop into our legs, and they drop into our ankles, and eventually they reach the bottom of our feet. And now we imagine opening the bottom of our feet and sending these grounding cords down into the floor below us, into any floors below that if you're in an apartment. And eventually they travel all the way through the building into the foundation. And then they hit the cool brown earth. And they immediately drop straight into the center of the earth and attach to the great crystal that is there. You may start to feel a tingling at the bottom of your feet. Just invite this connection, this grounding cord, anchoring you into the center of the earth. And now bring your awareness back to the grounding cord that is coming straight from your spine, that center cord from the center of the red ring. And we're going to grow this cord as we breathe slowly down into the chair, the surface below us, into the space below the chair. It'll hit the floor, it'll keep going, and we'll go through any floors below you. It'll hit the foundation of the building, and it'll eventually reach the cool, dark earth where it immediately drops straight like a plumb line and anchors in the great crystal at the center of the earth. And you have this three-pointed connection now with your body in the center of the earth. And just take a moment to notice that connection. And now imagine drawing up blessed earth energy from the grounding cords to your feet. And you can use your breath, and you can use your imagination, and see this blessed earth energy coming through the grounding cords towards your feet. It might look like a golden light, a thick honey, whatever it looks like. Just notice it and welcome it and draw it up. Draw this connection up and notice that it reaches the bottom of your feet and it continues up to your ankles and through your legs, to your knees and to your thighs. And it comes and it hits your hips. This blessed earth energy then rises into your pelvis, into your abdomen, and all the way up into your heart. And allow it to rest here in your heart and fill all of the spaces it has touched. And if there's any excess energy that you're picking up from the earth, just send it back down through the grounding cord at the base of your spine. And take a moment to feel the connection of drawing that energy through your feet and dropping any excess through the base of your spine as you create a circuit with the earth. Now bring your awareness back to your heart and leave the blessed earth energy here and draw your awareness up from your heart into your sternum, into your neck, your throat, into your jaw and your face, all the way up to the top of your head. And imagine opening the top of your head like a Pez container and reaching your awareness straight into the center of the universe now, into the heart of the cosmos, into heaven, into some unknowable space, whatever that means to you. Just be there now with your awareness in this universal connection. You're extending beyond and you're drawing down universal love through this connection and into the top of your head. And this might come as a sparkly light, a purple light, an image, however it comes, just notice it and bring it down into your body, into the top of your head, down your face, your jaw, your neck, your sternum, and into your heart. And when it's in your heart, it mixes with the blessed earth energy already there. And just feel these two connections, your grounding to the below and the above, mixing in your heart. And now we're going to send this mixed energy out around you like a bubble. It fills you and it goes beyond you, and it creates a space, a bubble that is yours. And your bubble might be gigantic, it might be really close in, it might be really thick, it might be really see-through. However it is tonight, just notice it. And imagine yourself at the very center of it. There's equal space to your left and to your right, to your front and to your back, above you and below you, and you're at the center. And now draw your awareness back to your heart, the space here, and notice the light of your own essence. A light that is always there and cannot be extinguished. This may be any color, maybe a candle, however it is, just notice it and know that it's yours. And now send this light out into your physical anatomy, filling up all of your arms to the tips of your fingers, filling up your cavities all the way to your legs and the tips of your toes, up to your head, to the end of each hair. The light of your own essence is just filling you up. And now send this light into your subtle anatomy, into your meridians and your chakras, into your aura. And then breathe it out into your bubble, where it meets the universal energy and the earth energy, this loving connection you've made with the above and the below. The light of your own essence fills your bubble and sets your boundary. Your resource from above, your resource from below, and your resource from the inside. And you can say to yourself that everything inside of this bubble is yours. And Anything that doesn't belong to you or doesn't align with divine love can leave now, and you can breathe it out. It can exit your bubble. It can go through that grounding cord at the base of your spine. Just take a moment to notice this safe space that's been created, a space that is just yours. Now imagine just calling yourself back from the day, all the places that you've been, all the interactions you've had, little pieces that you may have left here and there, or things that you may have picked up. First, we're going to just call ourselves back. And again, anything we may have picked up, we're going to send that away and outside of our bubble. And in this safe space tonight, I want to call in Yarrow, Devil's Club, and Red Cedar, the 3 herbs that I will introduce in a moment, and call them in as our allies to help protect us, empower us, set our boundaries, and be resources for us when we need to distinguish what's ours and what's not, and when we need to do some of the difficult work of healing wounds and becoming whole. And we welcome these herbs, and I welcome all of you and your boundaries. And when you feel ready, just welcome yourself back into the space that you're in and slowly open your eyes. If you feel compelled, feel free to make a comment in the chat or just sit with yourself and continue to tune in. If you have any questions, the chat is always there as well. Elizabeth, whenever you're ready, we can go to the next slide. All right. So as I introduced there at the end of meditation, we're going to move into a section of the presentation regarding herbal allies that help set our boundaries and offer us protection. And before we do that, I just want to make a quick comment about this idea of resourcing. The way that I think about resourcing is calling upon outside forces, and that can be universal feelings like love, compassion. It can be the earth, it can be the sky or the universe. It could be animals that we have in our life, like our pets, or it can be animals that show up to us often, like a crow or a raccoon. It could be plants, ancestors, living or dead. But these resources that we call upon, these outside forces that we need to support us in whatever ways that are unique to us at that time. And I believe very strongly that self-empowerment does not mean doing it alone. It also means knowing when to ask for help. And that's where our resources come in, knowing who to ask, when to ask, whether we're calling it in our imaginal mind, or whether we're turning to a friend to have a conversation, whether we're working with a new plant, we need support. And so I don't think self-empowerment is happening in a vacuum with just us. So I will offer that, and then we'll move on to the next slide. So a quick note on herbal dosing. I just thought this might be helpful because I should say first that nothing I say tonight is ever medical advice. It's mostly experiences that I've had on my own journey towards understanding plants and understanding myself and understanding my relationships and my sense of well being. But when you work with plants, there are two different types of dosing. You can do a material or like a physical dose, or a more of an energetic psycho-spiritual dose. So all of the herbs that I'm going to introduce, yarrow, devil's club, and red cedar, they have several medicinal properties and therapeutic actions that can affect our physiology when taken at higher material doses, such as a cup of tea, as I have here, uh, a capsule, like an encapsulated herbal formula, um, full droppers of tincture, anything topically used in like a carrier oil, like an arnica oil, St. John's wort oil, things like that. So these like higher doses where you're looking for physical, measurable changes, whether that's like reduction in pain or something else. But these herbs are also very potent on much smaller, like energetic doses as well. And when taken in very small drops, like 1 to 5 drops a couple times a day of a tincture, for example, or even simply when a plant or an animal, we're going to talk about plants tonight, but or like the spirit of love or something is in your space, you can access the medicine and the teachings of this plant on an energetic level. And it's working very subtly. It's working like on that psycho spiritual level. And I believe that the changes are measurable. It just is a little more subtle. It takes a little bit more time, and there has to be a lot of intention around it. So it's really on this energetic level that I introduced the following information tonight. And you can kind of imagine these herbs as archetypal forces that can support you in empowering yourself, setting boundaries, grounding, etc. Okay, next slide. All right, let's talk about yarrow. Yarrow is actually all the plants that I'm going to talk about tonight can be found in the Pacific Northwest, and that's why I picked them, because they are growing all around us, and because we are in the same environment as them, I believe that they have unique abilities to support us in ways that something from a different environment or climate can. So yarrow is considered the herb for the wounded healer or warrior. It's Achillea millefollium. Comes from Achilles, which is the god of war in Greek or Roman mythology. I'm not entirely sure. Topically, this herb has been used to heal wounds, but energetically, it can help us to face our wounds, particularly our wounded boundaries. So, the boundaries where we feel invaded by others, where we're taking on someone else's sadness, um, like what I talked about at the beginning. It can help us understand, repair, strengthen, and firm our energetic boundaries. It is supportive, especially for those who are sensitive to the energies of others, particularly in a large crowd. So you walk away, and from a large crowd, you feel scattered, or you feel jazzed up, you feel out of your body, etc. And it offers supreme clarity, and that could be clarifying your boundaries. It can be clarifying what is yours and what is not yours. Themes that I've talked about tonight. It's quite a bitter, it's a very bitter herb, and the bitter taste has a very cooling effect energetically on our system. And it grows everywhere, I think. I see it all the time in the spring and then in the summer. And that is yarrow, one of my favorites. Next slide, please. And now let's talk briefly about Devil's Club. Devil's Club is native to the Pacific Northwest. It grows in forests in and near water. It is considered the protector of sacred spaces and healing grounds. It is kind of archetypally like the king of the forest. It has this like grandfatherly protective energy. It teaches us about energetic boundaries, and you can see this in its physical form because it's actually completely covered in spikes. And I've heard that you can get a staph infection if you get pricked by a devil's club. I have never experienced that, but that's just a sharp lesson in the plant saying, "Don't get near me. This is me. That's you, and you need to respect my space." It helps us to see that our greatest gifts come from our deepest wounds, and it provides a sanctuary in which to face these wounds and emerge anew. So, again, this sacred space, this healing ground, this protective energy, it particularly helps to support those who are overwhelmed by external energies, which can be very seductive and they can easily break down our boundaries if we don't know how to build them back up. I love this herb. It has a very earthy taste. It's extremely grounding, um, and you can find it by walking in the woods. And that's Devil's Club. Now we'll go to Western Red Cedar, our last herb of the night. Um, Thuja plicata. As with all trees, I have found this with all trees, Western red cedar has a very grounded and protective energy. But this tree is particularly unique because it is can be so big and so ancient and so much older and wiser than we are. It is considered the tree of life in the Pacific Northwest. Um, it helps us connect with our center. So, we recall that meditation, the light of our own essence, our true self, not someone else's impressions of us, but really our center. And it gently resolves blocks that keep us separate. So maybe on the flip side, where we have weak boundaries, our boundaries might be too firm, where where we feel isolated or we feel separate. And that could be because there's shame. This is a really powerful medicine if you're working with shame. It could be feel like you're excluded, anything where maybe that boundary feels too strong. So again, it helps us restore healthy boundaries, both the ones that the boundary that we're putting up to make sure it's pliable and we can control what's in our space. So that's our final herb. And I just wanted to, on the next slide, shout out some of my resources, so to speak, things that I have turned to, people mostly. My mentors and teachers, Susan Poland, she's a healing facilitator at True Radiance Healing Arts. She introduced me to the bubble meditation. And then there's Scott Close, who's an herbalist. He's also a ceremonialist, a teacher, and author. He has a company, Cascadia Folk Medicine, and he has a particular line of tinctures called the Plant Teacher Extracts. And he has spent many, many years meditating with plants of the Pacific Northwest, harvesting and extracting these herbs in a very intentional, thoughtful way. And so it's very potent medicine. And the plant teacher extracts are actually designed to be used in drop doses in this way. And I have no affiliation with him. I just think it's an amazing way to use herbs. And I love introducing people to this company because I haven't seen a lot of similar products. So if this is something that interests you, check that out. He also has the School of Forest Medicine. He teaches classes through it and workshops and retreats. And he taught a soul medicine workshop, which I took with his wife, Catherine Close, listed below, who was also one of my mentors for my integrative pelvic therapy, a somatic dialogue workshop that I did with her, and that soul medicine workshop. And in the soul medicine workshop, we really dove into, we did 12 plants and studied them in this kind of psycho-spiritual way. It was really powerful. I don't know if they're offering that anymore, but there is a somatic dialogue workshop. And she goes through some of the herbs in that as well and uses them as resources when you're exploring sensations in your body and you're trying to get information about the root cause. I don't want to get too off track, but it's really cool. And then Sage Popham is another herbalist, author, ceremonialist. He has a school of evolutionary herbalism, which offers online classes and programs. He's kind of famous for herbal astrology and medical astrology and the intersection of those two. He also has a book called Evolutionary Herbalism, which explains his philosophy of herbalism. He thinks a lot about herbal energetics when making formulas or working with people. And then he actually has a whole line of herbal products. He specializes in spagyrics, which is an alchemical preparation of herbs where you extract 3 parts of the herbs and then recombine them into a very potent medicine. Typically is dosed very energetically in small doses and impacts that sort of psycho-spiritual level too. So just some more names, things to look into if you're feeling excited about tonight's talk. And that's all I have for you. Let's just go to my closing slide. Thank you. Again, my name's Elizabeth Beatt. This here is a picture of Rose, which is one of my close herbal allies. It's very helpful if processing grief. At Federal Way, I do naturopathic medicine. I do integrative pelvic therapy. I also offer abdominal massage. I frequently use botanical medicine in both physical and energetic dosing with my clients or patients. And then I talk a lot about somatic dialogue or counseling, which again is tuning into sensations in our body to get information about, the root cause and ways that we can resource you in that space. I'm here if you have any questions, and if not, no problem. I hope you all enjoyed the evening. And I see a hand up. I don't know what that means.
Oh, yes, we can ask them to unmute or
Oh,
enter in the chat box.
yes, Maggie, you can enter the chat box.
Hi. Oh, sorry. Is it okay if I ask a question just like this? Can you hear me?
Totally. Yeah, please.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for a great presentation. I joined a little bit late, but I'm glad that I got part of it. It's very helpful, I think, and interesting. I loved the meditation and just the visualization of the red ring and all that, but I kind of missed a little bit at the beginning. So would you repeat just like the first few steps of that?
Oh, yeah. So basically, before we get to the red ring, I also kind of botched that because I had to silence my loud husband. But you just want to get in a comfortable position, start to like tune into your body, feel the pressure of the seat below you, take some slow breaths, take some deep breaths, slow or deep, both can be effective. And then you just really start with the red ring in the abdomen, and then you focus on the cords that are coming out of that. You send those cords into the earth, draw up the energy, and then you go up and draw down the energy, and then you go out, basically.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I was able to follow along for the like going into the earth and
Right.
all of that. And that was really cool. I've done like body scans and stuff, but I've never like gone through such a fun like process like that. So
Okay.
thank you. I plan to repeat it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I don't have a copy of the meditation. I could consider.
Oh, I can memorize it. It's okay.
Okay, yeah, totally. Yeah,
Thank
you can
you.
memorize it. I was also responding to Jacqueline
Oh,
in
I'm sorry. I'm not
chat
looking at the
without
chat.
shouting her out, so that was confusing. But Jacqueline, don't actually have a copy. if I do create one, I will let Elizabeth know, and potentially we could get that as a resource for you.
That would be wonderful.
This is Holly Jacobson. So can you maybe give an example where you would use one of these herbs? So that the information was great, but like how would you, for instance, in what circumstances would you do the yarrow?
Yeah. So I've recommended yarrow for people who are in like the healing arts or sciences. They themselves are trying to show up for people as a healer or as a warrior, but they're just coming home so exhausted, or, repeating stories that they've heard all day, or um, feeling the feelings of the clients that they've interacted with all day. That's one situation where I've recommended yarrow, to sort of firm up those boundaries and start to differentiate between what's yours and what's not yours. There's this, on the slide, if you're someone who goes out into a crowd of people, whether that's a concert or a party or a work convention or something, and afterwards you feel just super sensitive, super exhausted, anxious, and you feel like you've taken on the energy of the crowd, or you just get lost in someone else's and all of that chaos, that would be a really good time to consider using yarrow as well. I also find that it's very useful if you're trying to like clarify things in your life, and that can mean a lot of different stuff. So it's like clarifying a relationship, or clarifying, I mean, relationships can be helpful because that can get so intertwined. For example, if I had a difficult relationship with my father and there was a lot of tension, and I felt like I was taking his anger on and reacting really quickly to things that he said or something, for example, I find that yarrow can help me clarify that boundary and that relationship and what I want out of it. And that would be another example. So a couple examples for you there. But truly, I think that any of these herbs can be used if you're feeling like your boundaries are weak. So you're taking on people's emotions, you're carrying someone else's grief, you're allowing someone's opinions to influence you, or you feel invaded by people's beliefs. If you go to the Cascadia Folk Medicine website, I believe they have all three of these available now. They might be out of Devil's Club, but there is a little bit more additional information for maybe selecting one. I didn't include all of the energetic indications for these herbs because there's a lot, and I wanted to keep it focused on this idea of self-empowerment and boundaries. But a couple thoughts for you there.
Perfect. Thank you so
Thank you.
much, Doctor.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great question, Holly. Thank you. Looks like Alma also was wondering the same. So great, we can get those questions answered for everybody.
Okay, it's Holly again. So do you have like maybe one book that you might recommend if we wanted to do some more reading about it?
Let me see. If I don't know if Scott Close has a book. If he does, that's what I would recommend. So I'm going to look that up. There's a book called Evolutionary. Yeah, he has like an identification book. which is definitely not along the same lines. One book that I've used that is, I think, bigger, more than this topic, but is helpful if you want to think about herbs as influencing us in these subtle ways. It's Evolutionary Herbalism by Sage Popham. I have been studying herbalism for several years, so I am a little bit biased. I will be honest, I don't know how understandable it is for newcomers, so to speak. But I think it'd be worth a try. And then there's a book called Plant Spirit Medicine, and that's by Elliot McCowan. He's practicing on the East Coast, and he has actually kind of trademarked the term plant spirit medicine. And so, we can argue whether or not that's a good thing or not, but he's done it. And I think that his book has some overlapping themes with like working with plants in this kind of energetic spiritual way. So I would also recommend that. I'm not as familiar with all of his work, but I believe he touches on this idea of resourcing and like archetypes and these sort of lessons that plants offer and the medicine that they offer us in this more subtle way.
Perfect. She gave thumbs up. Well, any more questions? Oh, I have our wonderful presenter here. Yeah, that meditation was fantastic. Thank you so much for your expertise and sharing that amazing meditation with us tonight.
Oh yeah, you're so welcome. I'm always happy to share that one. I love it too.
A really good one.
And I think that this recording is going to be available, so you could just rewatch it.
Yes, this will be available on our YouTube channel. So like and subscribe to our Marlene's Market and Deli channel. And if you have any issues finding it through YouTube, you can find it on our website. There's a couple of links there.
Yeah, so Jacqueline and Maggie, you could rewatch it there if I'm not able to get a write-up or anything. I don't think Maggie's still here, but yeah, that's an option.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you, everyone. We're going to stop the live or the recording, and thank you so much for being a part of tonight. Take good care.
Okay,